Strap in, Shiva. How's you doing?
Morning.
Good. That instant coffee of yours.
I'll be bitter.
You'll be bitter. Mr. John Wintle from Recorded Future. Good day, sir.
Yellow.
Mr. John, I will not butcher your last name from Black Point Cyber.
What's up? Live via the RV and Starlink. It works.
Mobile Command Center.
Yeah,
I
I like it.
Dude, that takes you back to 3-letter agencies, I'm sure. Mr. Xavier, how you doing, sir?
Hey.
Also Black Point. Good to see you.
It's Javi.
Javier, I always butchered that.
I know.
Oh,
I
you beat me to the
butchered my
punch,
name.
yeah.
That's why he doesn't call you back.
God.
That may be why.
That's not inaccurate.
Mr. Matt Lee, I'm not sure if you want us to mention your company that you're affiliated with or not, but
Yeah, I'm with PAX8. I'm an external evangelist, so I get a lot of purchase. I'm okay.
those who don't know, PAX8 is a wholesale of products that for the SaaS platforms that y'all resell for IT and MSPs.
Yep.
And our good buddy, also Mr. Vince Chrysler with DartQ.
Hello.
How's
Great to see
everybody going? So what is going on? It's been 2, maybe 3 months since we've held one of these things. That feels way, way overdue. So what's everybody up to these days?
Not
Let's
it.
go first.
I'm dipping out early, so I'll be the first to go. I got a live stream after this here back to back. But, for me, it's just been a lot of travel, a lot of education. There's been some great speaking points recently around, just basically some of the motions in driving our economic reasons to start securing oneself, right? And so it's been a lot of good cannon fodder for that, right? Both between, SEC and some of their proposed regulations, as well as CERCIA and a lot of those things. So anyways, just been busy teaching, doing my thing.
Man, you probably got more
nice.
flight hours than I do right now.
45 flights now this year. Yep.
My,
Our
101 since May 20th, actually. So,
Our feathers started to grow out your backside yet?
man, my arms are sure tired. Dad joke.
yeah.
I'm in the same boat, man. Lots of travel. We've been
Have
to
you?
a lot of these managed service provider shows. It's just great to see everybody out again.
Yeah.
I think what's cool about this channel is it's so much of this happens face to face. Meeting somebody over a drink, having a discussion,
Yep.
proving that you're not just some BS marketer.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of fun.
It's always an
Well,
important.
and a lot of like real conversations happen, right? Like that's where you get to the meat of it with most of those people is in that kind of, I hate saying it, drinking environment because, Ian Richardson doesn't drink, but he stays in that environment. But yeah, that's awesome, Vince.
I think for
Nice.
us, we've been traveling. We've been doing a little bit of charity work. We've been doing some support for Ukraine, which, I think we can feel good about. But more on the cyber side, we're finally sharing intel reports from stuff we've done for many years. We never shared any details on tradecraft or techniques. I've been doing some podcasts. And so, once Microsoft released that report on Hafnium, which we had stopped them, many, many months prior and had some more info, we started releasing stuff there. And then, specifically the Black Cat ransomware group, we noticed they were liking to use free trials of like IT tools, and RMM software deployment stuff to kind of,
He wants to call out
All of you.
all of them.
to be honest, like,
Yeah.
it was, I would say some of the obscure ones, like total software deployment. That was actually probably the catalyst. Screen Connect was involved, but to be honest, I don't really fault them on this one at all. In fact, they snuffed it immediately when we told them. And what was the other one? Total Network
Terra.
Scanner.
So, and a Terra.
Yeah. So,
A company
Oh, the Goju.
A and ends with an A.
but that was kind of interesting. And also their ransomware for that group is written in Rust.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Fast.
Yeah, it's very fast. I was
Fast. They've kind of changed. X talk like, oh, I don't want to mess up because I don't think John went yet. We'll talk about it in a bit, but we had some interesting characteristics that we saw from like, it's a concept that do you want to go like really spooky and try and hide your tracks, or do you want to not care and operate loud but fast? Both win. And,
Yeah.
sometimes going spooky catches you easier, and going loud and fast, you can't stop it. So it's the same net result for the bad guy. All right.
I prefer loud and fast, just to go on the record before John goes. Like, that's just
I thought we were PG here.
We haven't crossed too far yet. So.
Man, you're on a roll, man.
man, that was not where my head went. But thanks, guys. That's high
Mine
bar.
went.
Yeah, fair. Touche.
We can't go all full piss and vinegar, Shiva. We do have one in the works for that, though. But anyway, what's up, John? Man, I haven't, dude. It's been what, 6 months? You've been living in isolation? Not really, but you've been kind of off the radar.
It's been a while. I'm just getting back online from having a third kid. Well, I didn't have it. It just kind of blended in my household. So
Congratulations. I didn't know if you want us to publicly put that out there, but I did hear you had another kid, so congratulations on that.
Did you mind sharing date of birth, social security number, address, weight and height? I'm just kidding.
Right after he signs up for LifeLock.
no, yeah, it was. It's been a fun experience, but like nobody tells you, like when you have like the third kid, it's now chasing them down. Like you're holding them while you're trying to use one arm to wrangle 2 kids, and that's really what gets you running around for that. So then, like trying to keep up on anything else is like, okay, what's going on in the news? Ransomware. Okay, again, I guess that's still a thing. I'll deal with that when I get back.
I did find when we had our third kid, we were much less worried about breaking them, right? And so you're just like, whatever, like there's a lot less anxiety, and you're just like hanging them around by their feet and doing whatever you need to do.
That's funny.
Not wrong.
True. I have 3. This is the thing.
It is. So I guess let's dive in. I mean, me and Shiv were talking about it a little bit earlier, and I'm not sure if we really want to save this one for this one or a different one, but it's good
Send
for it. All right, send it. Cleared hot.
Great
Is anybody
podcast, by the way.
great. Has anybody looked at this train wreck Verizon report that was put out this week? The conferencing data breaches from 2021.
Don't waste your time.
I have not read it.
Ransomware's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
People are
is that
stupid.
kind of the meat of it? Yeah, fair.
People are stupid, and insider threats are worse. There you go. I just saved you 103 pages of reading.
To be honest, I read the Verizon breach report many years ago, and then a couple times after, and it was the same shit every year. So I stopped reading.
No, but they changed the year.
Date.
Yeah, I know. I just it's one of these things you can read someone else's report, but if you do this for a living, like I'd like to read my own, intel and understand it. So
Yeah. I mean, I do like to see some of the other reports out there. I mean, granted, we're not as deep as you are, John, but definitely seeing what other people are seeing out there, at least from my perspective, is a good.
yeah, I like the real specific ones that are really
Yes.
like trade credit.
Yeah.
I guess those are the ones we read, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Not the high level.
I like to read
thing.
Much more
I
tactical.
like to read a lot of, and a lot of like DEFA reports too that people put on. Those are always interesting because then they go a little bit more into like how it led up to the malware rather than malware on.
Yeah, that DBIR I found for years, like there's so much work that goes into it, so many people that are involved, but they distill it down to such a high level that the real value isn't it is to paste in your slides, for your presentations. Here's a chart that shows why this is important. But John, to your point on writing reports, I think, coming from a technical background, I've always been nervous about putting stuff out there because I'm like, people are going to really vet and care about it. And
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3 years ago, I put together a report on like consumer IoT devices.
Right.
And I had like a summary volume that was like 12 or 15 pages. And I had a technical volume that was like 110 pages. And I don't think anybody read the frickin' technical volume. And so the next year, like we did it again 2 years later, and they were like, we're keeping this under 10 because nobody's going to read it, which is like, it kills me. It's like there's all this information you can publish and people are just like, I want to see the cliff notes.
Yeah, there's a line to walk to on, education versus arming, if that makes sense. I just, not to blow smoke up John's ass, but Record Future, their intel reports are fantastic. I freaking love them and they do a really good job at it. Like, I mean that, like we've read them and it's legit. So obviously we came from, my previous life intelligence community, like the reporting discipline is a real thing, even though the community messes up sometimes. And if you're going to do it, it better not be a thinly veiled marketing slick. It better be honest and real and vetted. And I think that builds some, credibility.
Wasn't there one of those that came out a couple of weeks ago?
That's what I was trying to do, is put my own fingers in my ears on that one.
Are we talking about the Threat Locker RMM MSP tool?
Man, the backlash on that was fast and furious.
But well deserved.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
Yeah, fast.
I like the correcting nature of it, right? Like, I don't hate their product. I think it's a decent product. I think it's a cool thing to use to solve a challenge. But boy, the marketing side, holy hell, guys! Like it just breaks my heart. But I digress.
Yeah. That was an interesting one. But
So what are you guys, I guess, John, since you're just getting back, Wetzel, just getting back into the swing of things, let's put you on the spot. What are you seeing after a few months off?
I'll be honest, I'm still getting caught on technical reports. I've been looking at some legal and compliance stuff coming down the pipeline, and that's kind of been that took me on a little tangent the other day. I have a friend who's a lawyer, and she was talking about, have you guys been following Aerojet at all? Aerojet Rocketdyne Systems?
Mm-mm.
All right, so they got cleared for trial, went to trial, and then 24 hours later, they settled out of court for like $9 million. And the crux of the case is a cybersecurity one, which is this. Their former senior director of InfoSec sued them because he said that they weren't in compliance with cybersecurity regulations. Both basically said that they were out of compliance for kind of best practices for DFARS, and that he also sued them for wrongful termination.
Okay.
Apparently,
There's the other half of it.
But here's what it is. The suit, most of the findings of the suit was actually under False Claims Act. So DOJ came down last year and said that they were going to start taking a lot more.
I saw that from Federal Trade Commission was pushing it. Yep.
Yeah. So basically DOJ supported this suit. And what the False Claims Act allows you to do is that if somebody was an employer or somebody says, hey, you were out of compliance with federal regulations, you can claim up to 3 times the amount of their government, like the government contracts, plus like $50,000 per incident. And then on top of it, if you win, and like DOJ backs it, if you win under a False Claims Act suit, you get 15 to 30% of that back to you. So they settled out of court, and it was like a $9 million. This was like end of April. They saw this whole thing came through. So Aerojet Rocketdyne Systems, I think it's but it's like an interesting precedent, because now you have, like, it brings up this new thing, because now Department of Justice is now saying, hey, if you
will be your sword. Yeah.
Will be your sword.
Yeah.
If you're clients, we'll come in and we'll help you sue them. And it's severe.
I just got goosebumps, John. Like,
is there any correlation with that case and the Uber case, with their CIO being held liable for cybersecurity failures?
Well, I think that one was slightly, so DOJ just came out like, I think last year, and said they kind of reversed December. Yeah. Previously they said, no, we're not going to do too much. And then because of the Biden the executive order, they reversed positions on it completely. And this is the first test case for it.
Yeah.
So like,
because
I'm interested.
I remember seeing that. And so the concept was, and I didn't know this other component, John, but the concept in that FTC release was, hey, we're going to start suing you, not because you're necessarily not doing cyber stuff, but essentially if you misrepresent what you are doing, right? And that's essentially what the statement was. And this is the first action of that. But I didn't know the other component, which makes this 1,000 times stronger. Like, how many times is DOJ going to be able to build a case against something from the outside in without any data or information? Now that you made this hey, you know what? Our security director, not this security director, he's very happy, but our security director is not happy. He's tired of fighting the board. The board's not listening. The SEC aspect hasn't kicked in. And now guess what? I've got the biggest sword in the world that nobody ever wins against, or if they do, it costs a lot. Right. And I mean, you know, that if I was in a boardroom, and I might actually talk to a boardroom about this, if I was in a boardroom, this is an amazing sword.
It's crazy.
Holy
I would
hell.
stop inviting the IT guys.
Would
Yeah.
Matt, would Threat Locker stop that lawsuit, by the way?
Oh, Jesus.
I'm not going to go on record saying anything like that, Shiva. You know, I get in troubles.
Not just trouble, but troubles.
It's multiple troubles. It's Ken Patterson troubles right this moment. So I'll leave it alone at that. That's brilliant, John. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to use that in a speech in like the next 2 days. So I'll do a little bit. That's fantastic.
How about you, John?
I don't remember the original question, Shiva. I just forgot.
All right, we're gonna skip you.
Yeah, man.
At the back of the class.
As soon as someone said compliance, man, it was like a foghorn in my ear.
Can I ask Javier to talk about that thing you wanted him to talk about, whatever that was?
Yeah, you started down this path of asking Javier to talk more about about the Rust.
The ransom-
yeah.
Yeah, Rust.
Man, I can bring it back, boys. I got this. I'm here for something.
Yeah, X, go for it. I mean, I thought,
Yeah, man, I can talk about that.
yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of interesting, and like you said, John, it brings up this weird kind of middle ground of you got your automated detections, your AVs, your whatnot. Like, they're looking for all those cool nerdy tactics in memory, process injection, all this, but you get samples like the Black Hat ransomware, which has no obfuscation, no nothing,
Right.
written in Rust. There, you can literally parse it out quite well and see what it's doing. With basic decompilers, and
Thanks, John.
it was very, very, it's very effective that way because it's so simple. It makes it harder for the automated solutions to be like, this is bad, because they don't want to. It's similar, just like a regular application. There's no difference between that and something I write and compile real quick and go, or in Rust.
Well, and X, the other part is even a lot of the kind of canary tactics. It's so freaking fast. By the time you trip that,
Yeah.
it still smashed like 50-60% of the box.
Yeah. It has very efficient algorithms inside of it. So it's an interesting ransomware group because they're not the most loud,
Yeah.
but they do have a level of sophistication that's a little bit different than some of just like the normals, like the lock bits and all those. They operate more of a quick model, while the Black Hat ransomware, they put a little bit of effort and kind of some new tactics into what they're doing. So they must have. It's probably, honestly, a lot of these are just spin-offs of other group operators. So I can, why am I giving someone else some of this cake? I won't take it all.
So X, what I've seen of this Rust ransomware payload, this thing is the reason that it's so fast. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're the master of this malware analyst than I am, but it's only taking the first 32 bits of it and changing it for the encryption and leaving the rest of the file alone and just cycling through. Is that correct? Or is it the last? Or
I believe it was the first. I think it limits to 4 megabytes,
okay.
which will hose most documents, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other ransomwares. I knew there's another ransomware sample out there. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it had an algorithm where it would skip, like, it would do like 32 bits and then it would skip like 16 bits and 32. And so it didn't make the entropy too wild of the file. So that kind of fooled a lot of AV solutions out there too, because it's like, the file wasn't as changed as it could be. So yeah, there's some samples out there that have those type of capabilities. But yeah, I think they learned from the past when it'll start choking on like an ISO file some tech has on a shared drive. And then it's like, yeah, it takes a long time to encrypt a 4 gigabyte file. So
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, when you use a free tool as your backdoor or trial or whatever, that's not bad. It's not going to flag bad in anything. Then you deploy something like this. It's really freaking effective.
yeah,
It's hurry up offense, right? Like at some point.
It's the no-huddle offense of freaking ransom.
right.
And then to make matters better, like John, like a lot of the MSPs, when they're fighting their security tools, and even a lot of security tool practitioners, unfortunately, recommend those exclusions for those RMMs, right? And so
Yeah,
there's been a long-standing two-sided battleground where some of the solutions, purported by some of the players with like signing our code and only having this be able to be run and not really excluding the direct, but none of them are there. And so you already have like this. If I was a threat actor, I'm going to go buy 2 or 3 main tools and see what has no restrictions upon it when I want to do something, inject a process into it, or right, like get into somewhere where you're like, done. I know they're not protected against even enumeration, right? X, but this is so hard to catch, I would imagine.
it's very yeah. When it gets down to this type of stuff, it is very hard to catch because you're talking about something being executed by like a known, good, signed, verified piece of software. So
I mean, I used to use PowerShell in the back end of Screen Connect to do hundreds of things, right? Like
yeah,
so
and and totally
practice.
it's used for good 99% of the time.
Yep.
But yeah,
It's
there's
brilliant.
Well, and certain
it's
tools
very
that
interesting.
you install almost come with a framework to execute, by accident, and then you can really live off the land even more. Yeah,
There's a
example we talked about recently.
there's one recently assigned executable from Avast called AV dump, and it's used to dump processes. So you can So you can, go ahead and dump that LSAS process where all those secret credentials are for it. And it's assigned by Avast, nice process, AV ones. Yeah, that's the newest one that I was reading about. But I've seen also I've seen PExec, PSExec signed by someone's company certs before. It's like, well, perfect. Let me grab that real quick.
Wasn't there a big file sharing platform that had one of those tools bundled with it? Like, I don't know, what was it? Well, I don't want to out them, but
Yeah.
people are gonna use it. But
Yeah,
but
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I know there's a big RMM company that also bundles in something that could be used for a lot of them bundle in like putty. It's like even that. Like,
Yep. And not even a common version. There was 0.6 still on one of them. I was
I was just about to say it's like
Like, how is this
0.06
possible?
version of it.
Like I was like, what? I know we're talking about the same vendor. It blows my
Probably. And I'm just like, wow. And I've seen redactors be like, oh, putty's here, thank you. I'm gonna make a reverse tunnel back to my hacker server.
Thank you for reverse SSH.
tunnel some RDP. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, thank you for that. You know?
No, because they definitely are blocking 22. This isn't up to. We're fine. X. This is
Yeah, they're
possible.
blocking
They're
I thought you were supposed to allow
You
all.
can change SSH ports.
Yeah, just hit any handy and just go about that.
Yeah. No one runs SSH over 443. It's dope.
yes, not even possible.
X, I got a question for you on the Black Cat thing you brought up.
Yeah.
Last week, CISA put out, CISA, however you pronounce it, weak security controls and practices routinely exploited for initial access. Are you familiar with that one?
It's not
about- 10 things that they're telling you that most people don't harden.
To be fair, they also just added Heartbleed to the known exploited list, right? Like
We
we
were-
were 2004 or something.
We were talking about sometimes these threat parts get delayed a little bit when they come out of them.
Well, no, the reason I asked this is
little?
because you guys are saying that Black Hat is fast and loud. Is it because they
Yeah.
realize they don't need to be stealthy? There's so much misconfiguration and poor security out there that bang the doors, smash the doors down, take what you can get.
There's other, like poor security has driven a lot of ransomware groups or e-crime groups, open RDPs, and there's a lot that could be stopped by just best security practices. But the Black Hat tactics, I mean, unless you really got someone auditing every piece of software being installed, it's really hard to differentiate between just some tech finding total software inventory and installing it because he's curious, or it's a ransomware group installing it because they want to. So, when it gets to their tactics, it's a little different.
X, to Shiva's point, though, I mean, I know we did some testing of EDRs like a year ago, and you found like to evade them, simple tactics worked better than process hollowing and all, fun.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that also plays into their method approach. I mean, I think EDRs coming along have actually made it harder for the bad guys to do the more hacky stuff, and they've switched to a lot more live off the land stuff, IT, which is my, favorite way because it works all the time.
Well, but you also have the fact that a lot of ransomware groups, when they get that initial access, they'll kill the EDR on that system, and then nobody alerts on that. So that's one of the things I've never understood is why more orgs don't alert when, hey, something just a third party process just killed our EDR or endpoint. So even if you have the best EDR protection out there, and if you have it properly configured, and that's a big if, you have the problem of, well, am I alerting when it's been killed?
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, I've always been a big component on, it comes with security and death too. Like, also it comes down to like, do you want your AV company monitoring itself? Really should probably there'd be an alternative outside of it. A lot of them have like RMM tools already out.
RMM's
That's
good.
that's monitoring your other stuff. You kind of separate those gaps because, initially it is kind of hard. I know a bajillion ways to get around the AVs that it would be such a massive lift to even figure out why, that they're blind to something. Yeah. That
on the dark side, do exactly what you guys are talking about, but they threw a jump up code exploit to turn off an EDR.
Yeah.
Because tamper protection, like when you actually look at a few of them do it really well, but a lot of them have some sort of fatal flaw in their tamper protection. And it's
How much of that, John, how much of that is affected by doing good hygiene, like not having local admin or restricting applications that can run to certain applications? Like, you know what I mean? Like those are the things where my mind goes back to about 60-70% of the methodologies to evade an EDR probably go away, or am I just living in a pipe dream here, X?
Yeah, that is a good stopper for it all. Again, there's always the next, unknown jump up code. There's a user, you come in, you jump up to you escalate your privileges. There's a lot of ways to do this. Even knowing that it even doesn't even come down to the operating system. Sometimes it even comes down to sometimes your vendors may have a gap in some security they have on the software on there, and it's trivial for someone to use that to jump up code locally. So I mean, it does help.
Defender file, like Defender's file attack. The side use, if I remember.
The side loading. That's what I'm actually getting towards. Yeah, side loading is a huge, hard one to solve. Yes.
But Matt, I think you're right, man. If you take like the ability to be a local admin that may have the same account on other computers to interrogate and learn about your environment, it makes it so much harder and slower for the bad guy. And then the level of sophistication of the operators to go way, way, way up.
Yeah, sure. And that's when they start triggering the AVs a little bit because they have to start getting a little trickier, a little obtuse, and then they start coming out more. But yeah, having shared local admins across machines, it might as well just have domain access.
100%.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, having shared local access.
They put / users in the local admins, or if you will. Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, in the local. Yeah, might as well just add to the domain admins. Solves a lot of tickets, right?
Yeah, that's great. Convenience.
Well, man, we stopped the nation state again. 2 weeks ago.
The one you told me about.
Yeah, I sent you a snippet of that, but that one, again, they were running a DMZ, which I think they need to be dead and shot in the head. That's because everyone screws up your rules, right? Between outside and inside. It's so easy to mess them up. And these guys, they had that set up, so that was a knock against them. And then it was Cold Fusion exploit ultimate.
I know. That was so brilliant. Why is Cold Fusion doing net users group lookup?
Right.
This doesn't make
sense. These guys were so nervous about getting caught. They got caught anyway, but they
did like one transaction a day or something. Like
they'll do one like command a day. Literally
very slow.
Yeah,
but we had a case about 2 weeks ago where a malware was stealing credit card transactions in the network, putting it to a text file. And this is, I mean, X, you probably familiar with this. I know John and Alan definitely will be, but they would take and write it to it, exfiltrate that text file, and then timestamp that text file. They would delete it and then recreate that file real quick. So your original time and date was still there, but you open it and it's blank. It's a whole thing inside of Windows of time stomping. So, we kept seeing malware getting and traction going to this text file. Like, what the hell is going on here? It's like, there's nothing in here, but everything's writing to it. So we actually had it to, actually do a Wireshark to actually find all that stuff. And then we actually seen it in the alternative data streams.
I was just better. There's alternative data streams.
Yeah. To be honest, it took me a little bit. It's like, crap, why didn't I think of that? And it actually had in the alternative data stream where it was uploading that file to a mega share. I'm like, why did you even put that in there? But I was glad that they did, because then it gave me that clue.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of how they get out of that, air gapped part, they'll SMB over the data from, the scrape it out of memory, SMB it over, and then find something else to hook it in and get it out.
Yeah. It's really, so it's not all, I say that to say it's not always cut and dry. Right. So
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So I do see a lot of, we had a couple of cases over the past couple of weeks where we all see SonicWall being, the forefront of many, many issues with some of their versions, and just seems like a lot of people are not patching. So that's kind of Vince's world right there for the most part, especially with firewall, syslog monitoring and everything. So definitely be patching your damn firewalls, people.
Yeah. We've done a little. We've done a little research lately on this. Have you guys heard of the BPF door stuff?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like this obscure thing. They've attributed it to a Chinese group, to Red Mention. But it's a Linux-based malware that uses the Berkeley packet filters to watch for commands in random packets. So you embed a command in some random packet, and as it comes through, it picks it up and executes the command. It's really sneaky stuff.
It's almost like steganography.
Yeah, and the way they
packet steganography.
Yeah, and the way they load it, basically, they get it loaded into memory. They change the timestamps on everything. They rename it. They delete it. So it's like it's the way they hook into to Linux is pretty crazy too. So it's one of the most interesting things I've looked at in a while.
That's pretty cool. Vince, are you on the network side? Do you see a lot of hackers being lazy with their user agent strings?
Threat actors, John. Some people identify as hackers.
Oh, okay. Threat actors.
Sorry, man. I'm just being.
Chris
Roberts gets all riled up about that one personally. So I'll take care of his.
I'm too old to use the old terms.
No, we're not focusing in on that level, John. We're basically like, what we see is most of these hackers are lazy about the infrastructure they're using. Like, they don't have to conceal that infrastructure in any way, shape, or form, and they're highly successful. And so our whole approach is, we're collecting from as many sources as we can to say, okay, we know what infrastructure the bad guys are using, and if it touches your network, we're just going to block it.
Is it fairly ephemeral, or does it stay? Vince?
Yeah, like
is
what's the attrition rate?
Yeah.
Oh, we see the same things over and over and over again. I mean, it's just there's unique stuff that pops up, and we're tapped into, one of my favorite sources is the Gray Noise data, right? We're tapped into their API. And so as Gray Noise identifies people scanning for stuff and doing malicious stuff, we just block it. Cool. So it's, shut the gates before they even get in. And then, if they do get in, you can refer to somebody else, like, Blackpoint or somebody else to help. I don't know if I saw a comment about the name of the hack. If you guys are talking about the other one, but I was talking about BPF door.
BPF? Bravo.
Yeah.
Papa.
Well, you just
Bravo Papa Foxtrot.
You just enabled them. I'm joking.
Yeah, we definitely see on, I think, like the password spraying attacks and things like that, them being lazy with user agent strings, and it's like a Linux string or something. And, that can actually,
Python.
It's basic, but it can be a pretty simple, quick rule to apply, to cloud service they support or other login things, to just block them,
On the password spraying stuff, like we'll see exposed servers that I think people may not realize were exposed, and they're getting hit like, 20, 30,000 times. And like, why is this thing even exposed? You should probably do like a firewall rule to limit that.
Yeah.
Like
and most times they're like, oh, we forgot about that. And I'm like,
exactly. And so we saved a lot of networks just by, displaying like, look, this thing's getting hammered. And people know about it.
And they've been paying for pen tests, and they've only not listed that external IP because they didn't even know it was exposed. They're just like, not in scope because it doesn't exist. It's not out.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's funny.
I've never understood. I've
Sorry,
never understood the desire of organizations to limit the scope of a pen test like that.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah.
I'm like,
let me find what I'm going to find. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Find what you're going to find, and then let me, I'll take action on that on the back end. But yeah, don't tell me ahead of time, oh, ignore this class C, because that is,
It depends on if you're doing the pen test to justify your job or to actually find the bad stuff.
Exactly. Right. If it's a compliance thing, or if it's, I want to actually stop people from getting in the network. Right. That is an excellent point.
A compliance.
Don't scan this network because it's a 2003 server and it really gets choked up when you're scanning it. Can we expand
that one's operationally bad for us, right? Yeah.
I've actually walked away from penetration jobs like that. Like I literally, those who have actually engaged with me know that I literally ask one question: what networks do you want to make sure we scan that I may not be able to find on a public resource?
Sure.
And that's literally the only question. And I give them my cell phone number in case things go bump in the middle of the night and I break something. We're not going to just not scan your entire C class. I don't care.
I got something on my radar, Eric, and this is an Eric Taylor radar point, but also kind of me tangentially. Did you see the change in DOJ about prosecution of good faith actor, hackers and threat actors, or people in our situation? Like, you've done that with me in my company before, right? And
I've done that with many people.
You heard about it, but now you almost have some legal protection potentially. I mean, I didn't dig deep into it. John, have you dug into that much on that DOJ announcement 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it's kind of the same envelope as some of the other DOJ changes. It's interesting to see DOJ start getting more and more involved with this, because on one hand, they have the compliance thing where they're saying, hey, we're going to get tougher on companies that are falling behind. But on the other hand, they're actually saying, listen, if you're trying to take positive steps, or you're trying to contribute to be part of the solution, we're going to actually be supportive of that, which is weird to me because it's also from DOJ and FTC is leading it, as opposed to it coming out of like, CISA or anybody else kind of saying like, we're going to do it. It's kind of the legal arm of saying we're going to try and be good lawyers now.
But FBI's had that precedence for a minute, right? Like if you remember back since I think in the Obama administration, not to put it on politics, but it's just the understanding that I think the FBI had a directive of don't re-victimize the victim, even if it turns out they weren't dealing in their own best interest, right? Like so after they have a ransomware, they had a policy of not re-victimizing that victim, if that makes sense, by prosecuting them for things found.
You mean like if you get mugged in the city or whatever, like not arresting the guy that got mugged?
Well, the guy that got mugged and has a
Fighting.
bag of
Didn't have
cocaine
any
in his
weapons.
pocket. Like
Yeah,
no,
right.
it's more the guy that got mugged and had a bag of his cocaine in his pocket wasn't taken. They might not arrest him for the cocaine. It's the
That's a
point.
better analogy. So where is the line on that on this new DOJ? Like, so
Right?
I got it.
go pen test a cloud service, throw an exploit, and be like, no, I was just doing it for like security purposes.
So yeah, this is where really the rub comes in, right? And this is what my 2 cents gathering of this is. There are a lot of companies out there, and I'm sure even everybody on this call will get, hey, I found a vulnerability in your website. Let's have a call and you can pay me some money and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, we all get that kind of crap. And there's a bunch of those scanners that are out there that are doing that, blah, blah, blah. This is where a lot of my stuff come in. It's like I pick on Matt when he's in a conference room saying, Matt should really hire us about a podcast.
Yeah, he took a subdomain takeover, Jack.
It's our fault.
Yeah,
I really had some fun.
put my
with it.
picture up and link to a YouTube channel of mine. Like
That was
I
on
have a
me and
good sense
Shiva.
of humor for that one. So
So,
I think
but anyway, yeah, it was.
it was funny though because it was tongue in cheek saying, "Hey, here's Matt talking about why you harden your infrastructure and hire pen testers on a subdomain of ours." Right?
But that's-
Like, it was
That's very
was very-
different when the guy doing it knows the object. Like,
Exactly,
you
that's
guys
what-
have
True
a
story.
relationship.
yeah, we're friends,
If-
right? Like so that makes it.
If you didn't know
right.
who he
I get
was,
you. Yeah,
your
yeah.
entire outlook would have been completely different.
Oh,
True
sure.
story.
I trust.
And that's where it comes in. It's like if a company has an actual vulnerability disclosure program, a bug bounty program, things of that nature, that's where I think this DOJ applies it to at least a federal level. I can't go and just start attacking Blackpoint Cyber for some weird reason.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah,
Oh,
we can-
that sounded a little close to home.
it did.
I hate to tell
sure
you,
about that?
you're not the only one.
That's fine.
I love John. He's been very nice to me. But anyway, you can't just go and randomly start screwing with people's networks and not expect repercussions.
So
Like if you want to go test, I imagine where this comes in is if you want to start testing federal infrastructure and do an honorable disclosure and say, hey, I mean good. I'm coming to you in
Here's-
good faith.
here's where it came in for me. And Shiva, you go ahead. You look like you were poised to say something.
I have a thought on that. What if that is to protect people who do it through a vulnerability disclosure program who are threatened by the company saying, if you disclose this, we're going to sue you?
That might be where this
I
comes
think
into
that's
play.
more where it's going.
Yeah.
To just
Maybe.
not let the big guy scare the
Here-
little guy.
Here was where my argument comes in. So the Netherlands has this as an already like default methodology, right? Like you could literally hack into a Twitter account of a United States sitting president and you will be prosecuted by them just to have it on record that you were found innocent, right? So like this is actually coming from the guys over at whatever it was,
Divot or
DVID.
something.
Divid, yeah. But the point is, like, here's where I think this comes into play. I did a research project. I looked at 50 cities and I pulled up how many Unify controllers I could find in Shodan that were still there. And I had to go to it because it was Ajax. It would tell me the version, right? And I strung together Log4j and PwnKit that were both vulnerable in that version and was able to gain root and patch the end Unify controller. Like, that's where I think this legal protection kind of was, it was great.
So wait, Matt is now the FBI.
Yeah, I did proxy log on
Proxy
shell, right? Yeah, I did proxy shell protection. But I was saying I could have done that, right? I could have run one Python script to execute almost all of that by just pulling Shodan API and executing across, checking to see if the version's vulnerable and moving forward.
See, Matt, if you use Dark Cubed, they would stop that
I was just about to say.
from Shodan, not Dark Cube. Yeah,
I agree with that
I
statement.
got that
Yeah.
email. Just in case you're wondering.
This is a point of contention. We got some
love
interesting
it.
responses back. Like people
I
are
love
like, "How could you block Shodan?" I'm like, "Look,
Yeah.
like
Easily.
you're gonna have stuff that's
I think it's
vulnerable,
brilliant.
and
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's an excellent idea because you don't want your potential weakness is being broadcast on a public open resource like that, right?
Makes it easy for me. Just little queries and yeah.
I don't know where like the line is. In my opinion, the line is, I think, as soon as you execute code, you go.
But
there's
that
nothing
seems to be
do-
what the legal protection is.
But
if you
I
did
feel
that-
like
I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe I haven't read it, so I have no idea. I'm just saying, just blaming me. I
agree
feel
with
like
you.
once you execute code and the other side doesn't know you're doing it, I think you've kind of crossed this magic threshold. I think
Even
when
if it's just
like,
apt update, is that acceptable?
I don't know. I think it's once you execute code and someone
Yeah.
didn't ask you to do that, you just walked in my house. I didn't ask
I
you to
get
come in.
Thanks for coming in and vacuuming for me, you jerk.
I was about to say, I feel like someone coming and cleaning your house and then leaving. Be like, your
It's like,
door's
"Yeah,
not so I cleaned your house.
I just mowed your lawn. You know,
Mowed
I
your
didn't have
lawn.
to do, but now pay up, sucker.
Yeah, no doubt.
The window.
Now that's
was-
ransomware.
And that might be the other side of it. I don't know that I could ask for money for that and have legal
Yeah.
protection, right? I think that might be the.
That's
It really is
what
meant to
I
deal with the good faith threat act or hackers in this case. Yeah.
I think
I wanna
it's
see
been
bosses.
tech folks. They're like, I think we found a vulnerability, and the company's like, "F you, I'm going to crush you."
Yeah,
I've had that.
That's a whole different.
ConnectWise and Bishop Fox.
that
This
was
is not
well
Matt saying
publicly.
it for
Yeah, that's
whoever's
public-
listening.
No,
This
no,
is
that's
me saying it.
publicly
Yeah.
out there. I said it to their
I wasn't
sales
aware of it,
team. Actually, I said it to their sales team at their sales kickoff. I punched them over that. It was right as that was kind of all happening back in February of 2020 or so. And I was like on the stage and I was like, they're not going to throw me out at this point. They've already paid for the flight. So let's,
It's already paid for. What damage can it cause now?
yeah.
I mean, that's like me with TimesNest. You know, I've talked about this a little bit, but that PSA integration, they first say, hey, thanks for, disclosing this freaking thing. And to this day, they still have an iDoor available, but they told me to go kick rocks.
That was your fault because their logs couldn't handle it.
Yeah, true. You do a little bit of fuzzing and their logs can't handle it. They're like, oh, we can't really tell you. I'm like, whatever, guys, whatever. So,
Did you see Chris
It's-
Weaver's comment? That was kind of cool. How do you feel about someone walking by and saying, "Hey, your window's open. You might want to close it"? Hell yeah, totally good. If you walk in the window and tell me on the inside, you get a hole. But
you're like, hey,
Yeah.
No, wait,
I think
what if
that's
they
the,
walk
line.
by, they tell you, and then they ask you for money?
Well, I think the other side of this too, like
I found a vulnerability in your
you
premise.
gotta remember, like the federal government is not one entity, and like so you have a lot of different moving parts there. Like I know we talked about the FBI being like, oh hey, they used to try and enforce this anyhow. Like for a long time, people, even defense contractors, didn't want to let the FBI in the door because as soon as you did, you were getting visits from HSI, Secret Service, everybody else on it. Somebody's going to ask, can I put a box on your network? So, and it was like just this thing that like, all right, you may not legally enforce me, but it's hard for me to keep having these agents come through and looking through all my company's documentation. Then somebody's going to want to say, hey, what's your export compliance? What's this? What's that? And it's like, I'd rather not have that. The other thing is with DOJ putting out the memo, I think the other side of it is them trying to send a signal to the rest of the federal government saying that, listen, if you're going to have people who are volunteer, like kind of giving us stuff, let's do that. Even if they're asking money, that's a business problem. Let's let them deal with it. But what we don't want to have is this stuff coming to light and then us having to go back and forth, let's remove one part of that equation from it and try to set a precedent of how people should be going forward with this. It makes a lot of sense to us, but on the other side of that equation, on the government legal side, like you guys are worried about marketing people, I worry about the lawyers. And that's really where like a good thought goes to die of like, hey, who should we go in there? What should we do? Should we prosecute? Should we not prosecute? Comes into play. And I think that's probably why they decided to put out a memo. The other piece of that in addition to
That's fascinating, John. You know what's wild is like I'm thinking back on pretty much every nation state save we've done. I can't think of one of the companies that told the government or wanted to, or the FBI, because they didn't want a train of people coming in.
Right.
They're all like rug, they.
I mean, that's like volunteering for a colonoscopy in your business.
Yeah. I mean, I always
I will
heard
put out a
them-
plug for.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I will put out a plug for the guys in Dice DC under DC3. Like they run the DIB CS program. We're actually doing a program with them where they're deploying Dartkube for free for defense contractors. But that is an organization that takes that relationship with the private sector to the extreme. They protect the folks that are involved. If you report, they don't creep. they sometimes get in hot water with other organizations because of that. But they're a really solid organization, the government, that I've been really really impressed by.
I think it's important to share when you have it. Keep some bounds around it, make sure your GC is involved. But I think it's really important to share that tradecraft that you're seeing, just to get it up, to give them situational awareness. I think one of the biggest challenges, it's really hard for the government to be terribly effective in actual cybersecurity other than education, because the way our intelligence services are set up. Like NSA can only focus outbound, FBI only inbound. So there's no one that has a great view that they can bring it all together, that it's not fully wrapped in crazy legal processes. And so, I mean, how many times have we had the FBI come to one of our customers and said, hey, someone was attacking you 6 months ago? And I'm like, yeah, I know. We stopped it like 30 seconds in. Thanks. Really late to the party, guys.
Right. Yeah. That is.
But I can foresee how this happened, because there was something overseas that tripped it. It made down requests for extra data, and finally it gets to the customer. And that's that feedback loop that's got to be changed. And we need more like live intel sharing. I mean, I know we do have kind of a live mechanism, and we get some in return as well, which is useful. But it's really, really important. Like, it has to be speed matters in this game.
Well,
I don't know if I've ever talked about it here, but that program at DoD, like, what's happening on the back end is they're giving us their sensitive government indicators. We're including that in our scoring for just those customers. It's an AWS GovCloud. And so we're detecting and blocking threats on their indicators. We're also doing all of our other stuff, but then we're sharing the metadata, the summary of the metadata, like port protocol, source, destination, data volume. We're storing that all in real time in an ELK stack in an anonymous form where the DoD can actually watch that. So if they get an IOC from the intelligence community, they can search in ELK in real time and say, is this showing up in the DIB? So it's like, awesome. This is kind of one of those passions of mine from way back when I was with White House and DHS. And it's cool to see it actually working.
That is a good example of it working the right way. That's great to hear.
I second the thing around DC3. I got most of my training out of DC3 when I was with the government. They're great. They're a great organization. And genuinely want to help out and not be intrusive. I think the flip side of this too is thinking about it in terms of we talk about the government network as if this, you want to talk about networks that don't really have a solid boundary, right? You can talk about the gig, you can talk about what DISA has under their purview and stuff like that, but you're forgetting about the hundreds of other federal networks that are operating somehow there was literally one CI guy, I think, at the Department of Agriculture. And that's all why did they need intelligence? I don't know. Maybe they need to be able to coordinate and work with other teams on that. There are and that's just counting the actual government-owned assets, owned by the federal government. You have a lot of weird assets that are hybrid-owned, fusion centers, who owns controls what thing. And then you have all of the other things that kind of fall under that weird, defense contractor type of area. Who owns the classified network? The government does, but it's under the purview. And so you get those weird boundaries there that go out incredibly far. I think much further and much more impactful, even overseas, that people necessarily think about. So who owns those things? It's really, we talked about wanting to try and have this, public-private partnership where we're sharing information. Well, I mean, I would personally be happy if just anything that touches something that's federal government, not even state, just federal government, had sharing of its own. They could understand and get their hands around that type of network, because it's truly massive.
Yeah. Very distributed, lots of agencies, overlapping authorities. It's a challenge for sure. There's no question.
Well, maybe
I'm not quite sure we can share stuff effectively still. I came out of there. It's been 12 years at the agency. It's crazy.
Well, maybe TIC 3.0 will solve it when TIC 2.0 or TIC 1.0 didn't.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
CMMC is going to come down next year. CMMC 2, and that's going to solve all our problems.
John's going to make us all drive into traffic.
Just make it CIS and call it a day.
Thank you.
At least they tell you what I really like those frameworks. It's you can change this configuration to X. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on. I'm a big fan of the CIS stuff.
So, I mean, we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I do want to be respectful. Alan was able to finally be able to join us, and thank you, Alan. So I know you've been traveling.
Alan.
I'm sorry?
I have one question for Alan. That is the most important question ever.
You got it.
Did you lose your sense of taste?
Oh God, no.
Okay, then we're good.
No, I
What
would
more
have.
questions? That's it.
Well, so I have my next sommelier certification scheduled for June 7th. And when I tested positive, like I spent the rest of the day sniffing everything I could to make
Well,
sure that
That's why I asked, because we got to put the
Yes.
important things first here.
I was very concerned.
That's like a death sentence. You get COVID, your gut things you can't taste or smell.
Right. So all I'd have left is my cybersecurity career instead of my wine hobby. Oh no.
Priorities. But
Facts.
what are you seeing these days, Alan, that you want to talk about?
I am fascinated by the whole SpiceJet Airlines ransomware attack and the idea of that's been discussed on Twitter this morning of could that be that kind of extra extortion that we talk about, where if you have passengers on a plane or stuck in an airport trying to pressure airlines to pay in order to get everything back up and running. Now, we all here know that just because you pay the ransom doesn't mean bam, your ransomware attack magically goes away. But it is kind of a fascinating idea. Are we going to see more interest from ransomware actors and going after these kind of targets, given the kind of outcry and attention they're getting from this one, that could be immediately disruptive to bystanders.
Yeah, I do think there's a silent attack silently growing interest on attacking our infrastructure. It doesn't have to just be electric and gas, but I mean, so travel is a form of infrastructure, if you will, right?
There's been agriculture companies getting ransomware recently. I think two
Very
big were
true.
hit pretty recently.
Yeah, but
so it's
their hygiene is
different
worse
side.
than healthcare companies.
They should have let me work on my John Deere tractor.
Exactly.
With the airline ransomware thing, there's a new Samuel L. Jackson movie, Worms on a Plane, you know?
Oh my God.
Don't give them ideas; they'll make it.
Why do we
What if he come out with the song?
eating worms?
Yeah, I think
jokes.
one that's nasty that luckily I think it's kind of hard technically to pull off is like holding buildings hostage. Because there's a lot of times a manual override for building automation systems, and so you can encrypt like the computer that controls them that's running your software. But if anyone gets to the point of being able to mess with the firmware but not destroy it and hold the building hostage, that it'd take a more technical, kind of approach and a lot more R&D. But boy, I would hate that one because that would
Wasn't
work.
that Stuxnet? Didn't they just increase the speed of the centrifuge?
I guess. I mean, that's what I read. It sounded like it. I mean, that's a typical industrial control style attack. And, usually like, especially in buildings, like you have a huge age range of industrial control equipment in there. And it's really similar to SCADA. They run BACnet instead of maybe Modbus or TCP. Like those protocols are unauthenticated. So if you get in, you can craft packets and change set points in fans and boilers and all that stuff. But the system that actually can talk to the firmware on your chillers and boilers and your water treatment, that's the area that gets a little janky and scary because that is the Wild West. I mean, that's one area, like, I think I'm curious if you guys are seeing more attacks on physical security infrastructure that's integrated with Windows domain, kind of like the Sony attack had some of that going on. But we had a breach of one of our customers. And we're like, and this was a port, right? And we're like, damn, we got to hustle and knock this one out. So we did. And we were really impressed. It turned out to be the federal government doing an actual pen test on a port critical infrastructure. They did a freaking great job.
I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Got to give them credit for it. But people got to look at that a lot more. And I highly recommend separating your badge swipe off. All the vendors tell you to integrate that with Active Directory. So if you fire someone, you can delete their account and their badge swipe's gone. It's a terrible idea because if you get ransomed, it smokes your entire physical security infrastructure, like immediately.
But that requires VLANs and network segmentation, and that's just too hard, John.
I know. Just break the domain tie and like we'll call that good enough.
I thought the cloud was going to solve all this for us.
That does make it a Not perfect, but a little better. It's a little
I
hard.
mean, maybe not the cloud, but I know. It's got to be the cloud plus crypto. That's right.
Yeah, there you
With an
That was crazy.
NFT.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You got to put it on the blockchain.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The
well, there
blockchain
you go.
solves everything.
Yeah.
It's fine about the cloud. Cloud services. What we see customers who still roll all on-prem get smoked more than the others that are more kind of a full cloud model. But boy, the cloud is awesome until it's not, and it's a house of cards. When
Did you have anyone affected by Okta? If you could say.
I don't think so. Did we X?
No, it's not super popular in our
No.
customer base. Yeah.
But yeah, that's always scary. You know, you think about like cloud networking control. Like, geez, imagine if that stuff gets taken over. I mean, you can wreck house fast.
Oh, yeah.
This is why all the network vendors need to, like, if they're kind of loading a binary and it goes into memory, they need to freaking cryptographically sign that stuff. It's really, really important.
And yeah.
And a lot of
And
people
test the
don't.
process too, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I've seen a lot that are cryptographically signed, but there could be some, you know, where they get these OS firmwares from for all these devices. It's not the most legit sources. And they all, so, where they get like the actual operating system on the IoT device. It's never, they don't usually build it from the ground up. It's usually licensed.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. Well, now that we're getting to the top of the hour, any closing remarks from everybody before we close this thing out? Shiva, go ahead.
Fun to see everybody.
I got nothing, so start with the guys who actually know what they're doing.
There
John?
we go.
One of the Johns,
One
Javier,
of-
Vince, Alan.
The Johns.
No, I would just say thanks for doing this. It was too long. I thought we were doing this every month. I was all ready. So I'm in.
Ooh, next month.
This is fun. I think it's really good to get people like unscripted, no sales bullshit. I'm
Right.
so tired of these thinly veiled sales pitches. Let's talk honest, real, be educational. It's better.
But make sure you give both Johns, Vince and Alan your money and buy their
Yes,
products.
that's very important.
They can't say it, but I can.
And Shiva's got a link to his podcast there in the in his title bar, so definitely check out the Amplified and Intensified podcast, and doing some great stuff over there. And with that, we will wrap this one up. Everybody stick
Well,
around
what
for
about
the.
Vince, John, and Alan? Anything?
Oh, I'm sorry. My
Okay.
apologies.
Nope. Just gonna say thanks for the time today. It was awesome.
Yeah. Apologies for being late. Had a customer meeting that ran long, but
I thought you were doing a wine tasting. To be honest with you,
I wish. Sadly, I'm not allowed to leave the house, but I still have meetings to go to. So
and you can still drink wine at your house too.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me also onto this. You know, we also have our own podcast too, called The Unfair Fight for
Oh, yeah.
5 Point Cyber. So look out for that. Go check it out. It ranges all over. It's not even just cybersecurity sometimes. John's has high level athletes. It gets a little bit outside of just cybersecurity. So a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, the Recorded Future just launched their new their podcast with the I forget the
Tina,
Dave-
that
yeah.
was a pretty good. That's a pretty good podcast. Highly recommend it too.
yeah.
That's awesome.
It did take me a couple episodes.
I'll
to
be
get-
checking that out.
It did take me a couple episodes to get adapted to her style.
You just got to listen faster, man. That's all.
Faster. The name of the game.
All right, let's get this thing closed out. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please like, subscribe. Please share this with somebody you think you'll find value with this thing. We want to be able to spread this message. Please subscribe to us as we try to expand this thing and be able to make this thing grow. Until then, thank you so much for joining, and we will talk to y'all next time. Take care.